And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gents, to the United Man. My name is Shane. As you can see, today we're joined by a special guest, friend of mine, Motty from Stretford, Paddock, aka Full Time Devils. How you doing, Jay, my man? Long time no see.
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm still recovering from the picture you wanted to use for a thumbnail.
If we get any requests, then we might have to share that with people, Jay. But to be fair, I knew what your reaction was going to be. That's why I had to ask her. I did have to ask the question, man. I was like, "Yo, do you mind if I use this?" Nah.
You know what? As well, I almost didn't look because I almost just went, "Yeah, whatever, it's gonna be fine." And then I just glanced and I was like, "Whoa, no."
To be fair though, come on, let's be honest. You got one of those faces that everybody loves, highly recognizable. Well, come on now. I'm walking down the street with you when we was filming end of last year, and people are, honking their horns at you and all that kind of stuff. So
probably in anger, in rage.
Yeah, right. Behave yourself, Jay. Anyway, Jay, thank you very much for joining us today. I know you're hard pressed for time, so we will get straight into it, man. No, I do appreciate it, honestly. For those you don't know, Jay gave me obviously my opportunity on Full Time Devils last year. I got in contact with Jay. Someone who is as busy as Jay, you wouldn't think would get in contact back with you, but shows the measure of the man. Mate, got in contact with
listen, on Devils and now with Stretford Paddock, we've had a rebrand. And I'm not sort of sound like a cliche, but we are about fans. And you got in touch, and I looked on your clips, loved the watch alongs, loved what you was doing, and just thought, love to get involved with, get you on the channel and stuff, and it's been good going ever since.
No, brilliant, mate. But yeah, like I say, really appreciate it. What I wanted to do is get your feel though, Jay, on it's a season summary, but also to narrow it down to individual players per position, whereby who you feel was the best in that position, also the overall player of the season as well. So if we just get a sort of like a feel for how you feel the season's gone, with sort of like a touch of it before we come there. But how do you feel like the season's gone so far, though, Jay? Or so far, I should say.
So far, there's something left you're not telling me. I think it's been the word I used is sort of decent. I mean, as a Manchester United fan, I'm not gonna, there's no parade for getting to 3 semi-finals and losing all 3, or finishing third. We expect to sort of be winning trophies. Even post Fergie, we've always won trophies. I think this is the first time since 1988 or something we've gone 3 years without a trophy. Getting to 3 semi-finals is good. Losing 3 isn't. So it is a work in progress. Me and you spoke about it many, many times over the last sort of 12 months. We know the job that Ollie came in to do. We know that what he inherited, it wasn't going to be easy, and I think he's built on that. And the main thing, whether we like it or not, was getting into the Champions League. Yes, I want to see us winning trophies, and we want silverware, and that's what Manchester United Football Club is about. But getting into that Champions League, bringing Champions League football back to Old Trafford, regardless of whether the fans are going to be able to see it in there, was vital, and also possibly it helps you attract better players. I'm still not convinced. I still think if United want players, they can get them regardless of Champions League football, but it doesn't hurt. So that's a big step forward. Finishing third, isn't, you look at that, that's good. But a trophy would have been the icing on the cake. So that stops it from being a really good season and just makes it a decent one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. And I feel like within that season, though, now, when me and you've spoken before about, for example, Ollie and what we feel he's going to be able to bring to Manchester United going forwards, and in terms of where he was, for example, like we were saying last time we was together was at the United City game where we obviously won 2-0. But then, even then, there was still whispers of uncertainty around Ollie and whatnot. What's your feelings of Ollie going forwards? Because obviously we're in the Champions League next season, which is heavily down to Ollie and him, getting to players to play that attractive football that we've been missing for years and years. What's your feelings on going forward with Ollie leading into next season and obviously challenges that face him going forwards?
I mean, I've always backed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I have. I think that you've got to get behind the manager and give him time and give him sort of at least the opportunity to try and sort of mould the team into his own image and get the players in he wants and bring the youngsters through that he wants. And so far, I think he's done a reasonable job of that. He's done a quite a good job, bringing through the likes of Brandon Williams, Mason Greenwood. All the signings we've made, I think, have been good signings under Ollie. Even the likes of, you look at Dan James, who's struggled. He cost 12 million quid. And he still played a part, so it's not been a complete disaster. And I think some of our best players this season have been the signings he's made. I know you're going to get into that a little later on, but the likes of Fernandes and Wan-Bissaka especially have been two of our best players. Yeah. So he is doing well, but I mean, there's two things. One is, no matter who you are as Manchester United manager, you're always sort of 3 results from being under pressure. If Ollie loses 3 games on the spin, he's going to be under pressure because that's the way Manchester United works. It happened with Van Gaal, it happened with Jose, and they had a much better CV as a manager than Ollie has. So there's that element. But I think we just need to get out of this cycle of sort of chopping and changing managers and show a little bit of faith in someone. So, definitely. Listen, we've had it before where a manager's done okay or done quite well, like with Jose, and then, the beginning of the season, things have gone wrong. He's gone. We had it with Van Gaal. He did okay in his first season. Halfway through the second season, started to go wrong. And we all knew he was gone, and we knew Jose was coming in. I just like the board to back Ollie this summer, give him the funds he needs, back him properly, and then hopefully let him have the full season. My big sort of niggling doubt I've got with Ollie is I get the impression that perhaps the next manager might be the one who's going to feel the benefits of what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is doing, because he's bringing through the youngsters, he's making good signings.
Yeah.
Will Ole carry us as manager for the next 4 or 5 years? I'm not sure. I hope he does, because if he does, it means he's been a success.
That's right.
We may well see Ole sort of go to the end of next season, or maybe one more season, and then someone else comes in, because I don't know. There's still a little bit. I think that, if we're being brutally honest, there's a little bit of the jury still out on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And the main reason for that isn't because what he's done at Manchester United. It's purely because, as well, the fact that he doesn't have a big CV. He won a couple of titles at Mulder, which is great, but then that was 2012, I think, his last one.
Yeah.
Until coming into the United job, he didn't really do a lot that made you think, oh, he's a Manchester United manager, other than the fact he was a legendary player. So I do back Ole, but I don't know. I just have this feeling that it may be a bit more short-term with Ole. It may be 1 season or possibly 2, rather than the 4 or 5 years we'd all like to see. Because, ideally, you'd like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be at the club for the next 20 years, because that means he's been successful.
That's right, yeah. But with that, though, Jay, obviously, I think, and it's hard to say, and I don't think it's a wrong thing to say either, but it's quite obvious that he's been learning on the job as well. But with that, the players seem to be growing with him and almost coming together with him as well. It's quite obvious and evident that he's brought the best out of numerous players, like Brandon Williams. Obviously, he's brought back Timothy Fosu-Mensah from injury as well. He's obviously brought through Mason Greenwood. But McTominay was flourishing, obviously, the earlier part of this season before the lockdown. Martial, he's put his arm around him. Obviously, he's become all of a sudden well beat up. Rashford, before his injury and before lockdown, was our talisman. Now, all that being said, like you mentioned, his signings as well have been on point. Obviously, other than maybe Daniel James, who struggled a little bit, but that was a lesser fee, so you could almost forgive him for that one. What would you say, for example, we did let him go after, say, for example, next season? What would you say? Would you say it's been a failure as a manager, or would you say it's just a case of he's taken Manchester United as far as they could go?
I think, if Ole goes within the next couple of years, you're going to probably argue he's not succeeded, because otherwise, why has he gone so soon? I think, if he's here for another 4 or 5 years, then he must have had some success and he must have been successful. And I always think it boils down to Manchester United. You judged on trophies, not just results. You mentioned the Manchester derby. Great result, great atmosphere. Yeah. We were both there, loved it. One of my favourite times in recent memory of being at Old Trafford. We obviously beat City away in the league and the League Cup as well. I know we lost the tie overall in that game, but we've had those moments under Ole. When he came in, we had that wonderful run culminating in that night in Paris. So we've had these moments and we've seen what he can do sort of against certain opponents and whatnot. But you need to win things, and I think that's where he'll be judged on. It's not finishing third or getting to semi-finals. I know I'll repeat what I said. That United fan,
Carl.
Yeah. But it's what you win. And I think, you look at Jose won 2 trophies in his first season and he was sacked halfway through his third one. Louis van Gaal won the FA Cup and didn't even make it past that weekend. So, we can be quite brutal, but I think if Ollie does win trophies, he'll be given time, but that's what he's going to get judged on.
So, in saying that, obviously that takes us into our point of, and what obviously the discussion is mainly about now. We've got and had a very good season by the standards of what we've been doing in recent history in terms of where we were at the beginning of the season. Now, where we finished was not where we were expected to finish based on where we were, say, for example, November, December times. Having said that, the actual style of football has improved massively as well. As I say, that takes us into our first point, I should say, and basically, I want to try and ascertain and gauge who your individual best players was per position. And if we start with traditionally, as we do normally, do you know what? Before we go forwards too far, let's start with. I know it's not really, it's a bone of contention point, but I wasn't going to do it, but let's start with the goalkeepers. And I think you've got to include Dean Henderson because he's a Manchester United player, even though he wasn't playing for Manchester United this season. Tricky, I know, but he's a Manchester United player. Now, out of Romero and De Gea, I mean, it's kind of a little bit difficult. But if you throw Dean Henderson into the mix, who would you say has had the best season out of them three?
Well, I think, in terms of performances, Dean Henderson's had a better season, but he's not been playing for Manchester United. And that's, I rate Dean Henderson. I think he could do a job with us, but I'm also a little bit wary because we've been here before. I'm old enough, probably you are as well, where everyone thought Ben Foster was going to come in.
Yeah, exactly.
And, he was given a chance and he just couldn't handle it. And then he obviously went on to Watford and did okay. So we have to see how Dean Henderson copes as being a Manchester United goalkeeper before we can say, he's definitely made it. I think he's got the ability, and I think he seems to have that sort of confidence in him where you'd expect him to be. But until that happens, you just don't know until he steps between the sticks because, Dean Henderson isn't infallible. He's made mistakes as Sheffield United keeper. Made a mistake against Liverpool, for example. And you imagine doing that for Manchester United, it's going to get absolutely amplified and spoken about all over the world and dissected. And sort of, you're going to be under the microscope that you're not going to experience anywhere else, including at Sheffield United. So we have to see how he copes with it. So in terms of performances, I think Dean Henderson has, but for a Manchester United goalkeeper, despite him not having his best season, by any stretch, probably his worst season overall, you still say that he's had a better campaign than Romero just because he's played much more games, really.
Yeah. So I suppose with that, then the next question comes: the whole situation with the goalkeepers. What goes on going forward? Obviously, my take on the goalkeeper situation, I think we'd have to give De Gea possibly another season. I know it sounds mad because it's been 18 to 24 months now where he's been off form and it seems to be on the decline instead of the other direction. So, in my opinion, I'd say we'd have to give De Gea one more opportunity before bringing Dean Henderson back to try, because like you said, going into Manchester United's, firing line and spotlight, it's a much, much bigger beast than obviously playing for Sheffield United or any other club in the Premiership for that matter. So what's your take on David De Gea in the goalkeeper situation?
I mean, I get where you're coming from, like with the whole sort of giving one more season, but I don't know. I think it might be a case of sort of Dean Henderson coming back and I spoke earlier on about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being under pressure, even if he loses 3 games or whatever, or 3 games on the spin. And I think it might look that David De Gea starts as number 1, but he is, because he's got a player that's ready to come in. That if he has a sort of bad spell like he's had this season, that Ole swaps it around and says, right, Dean Henderson's going to come in. I think Dean Henderson might come in as number 2, but knowing that David De Gea knows that if he makes mistakes, if he has a poor run of form, he's no longer undroppable. Dean Henderson also knows that he's got a chance of getting in to that team, getting into the Manchester United team. If Dean Henderson came into this squad in 2017, 18 or whatever, he'd have no chance. Forget it. You're not getting near that number 1 spot. David De Gea was at the time probably the best goalkeeper, certainly the best shot stopper on the planet. But you hit the nail on the head. You mentioned 18 months. I go back to Spurs away when we played him at Wembley when Rashford got the winner. He was amazing that night, David De Gea. And since then, he's been average at best. There's been too many mistakes. I don't think he's been terrible. I think he still has some good performances, but he's no longer as trustworthy as he used to be. You don't look at him and think, he's one of the best, or he's the best goalkeeper in the world. I know Ollie says it, but I don't think.
Yeah, he doesn't believe it.
No, he's just that. Ollie does that thing. He sort of circles the wagons funny, and he defends his players.
He's good at it as well, isn't he?
Joe thing, he just
hanging him out to dry.
Yeah. So
that means. Go on, sorry, Jay. Sorry.
No. So I think it'll be sort of Dean Henderson as number 2. Romero will probably move on, or even drop down to number 3. I don't really know, and maybe I almost forgot his name then. Lee Grant.
Lee Grant, yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll start with David De Gea. Don't forget, he's a massive amount of money. He's the highest paid goalkeeper, I think, in the history of football.
Yeah,
so it's not going to be easy to just drop him or move him on, and then we'll see. But if Dean Henderson does take over from him, then you can expect David De Gea to want to leave, because I don't think he's going to be happy to warm the bench. Especially, he's only what is he, 29? He's
29. That's what I mean. He's supposed to have another 8 or 9 years ahead of him in terms of top level goalkeeper, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's madness, isn't it? It's really weird, because I think what was Van der Sar was 30 odd, wasn't he, when we bought him?
Yeah, he was. I think he was 36 when we bought him.
That's what I mean. It's he won the Premier League at 40 years old. So
Fergie was I wish we would have bought him beforehand, weren't he?
Oh, I do. Remember Massimo Tahibi and all that nonsense and Mark Bosnich's days.
Raymond van der Haal.
I like Van der Haal. He was all right. He was the only one. But, yeah, I know what you mean. It's So I think there's certainly a conversation, but I expect Ollie to stick with his man for the time being.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And with that being said, obviously, when De Gea was having his best spells and saving us loads of points in a season, we didn't really have a great defence in front of us. Now, obviously, with the acquisitions that Ollie's made over the past couple of transfer windows, we've strengthened in a few positions. Now, one of those being obviously centre-back with Harry Maguire, and now obviously club captain, and also right-back with Wan-Bissaka. But obviously before that, Lindelof came in under Jose Mourinho, and Luke Shaw was at the club as well also. Now, Brandon Williams is coming through. Obviously, Tenen Mengi made his debut, but who would you say would be the most, who's realistically and who has had the best season out of all our defenders, would you say, so far?
Across the whole,
across the whole back line. I'm waiting. We're never going to get into.
We're going to appeal the semi-final off and get into the final somehow. But I think for me, my sort of one of my players of the year, and certainly the best defender for me, has been Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I know he's looks a little fatigued post lockdown, especially the last few weeks. But overall, I think he's been superb. You look at especially at the games against Manchester City, where Raheem Sterling, although he didn't get goals against us, always caused us massive problems.
Yeah,
he
always.
He just couldn't get past Wan-Bissaka. He was just unplayable. And I think for him to come in after one full season in the Premier League, big money sort of price tag on his head, come into a club like Manchester United from Crystal Palace, which is obviously a massive step up in terms of expectation and attention and everything else, and perform the way he has done, which has been pretty phenomenal. Yeah, definitely he's been the standout defender, and I think there's all our defense overall has done quite well, and I think our record defensively is one of the best in the league, certainly and across Europe. There have been mistakes, there have been a few wobbly moments, and there are certain, things that Ollie has to address. But the right-back position isn't one of them, and I think that Aaron Wan-Bissaka has been a fantastic signing for him.
So saying that with regards to Wan-Bissaka now, obviously it's been pretty widespread reported that his offensive capabilities need a lot of improvement. Defensively, he's been called the best one-on-one defender in the Premier League, possibly in Europe, by his peers and ex-professionals as well. So that being said, it's quite a different slant from one ability to the other, considering that he got into Crystal Palace as a winger, apparently. So, I mean, do you, obviously, as I say, it's quite glaring, the difference in between him defensively and offensively. What do you see for Wan-Bissaka going forwards? Because that would be my choice as well. Wan-Bissaka's best defender of the season. Going forward, do you see him improving? Obviously, maybe never reaching Trent Alexander-Arnold's level of offensive ability, but what do you see for Wan-Bissaka going forwards, obviously, in terms of how he performs now?
I mean, he has got to improve going forward. There's no mistake about that. And people need to remember, we keep hearing this argument, he started off as a winger, The thing that you got to remember about this, if you're a winger for Crystal Palace under 15s or whatever, that doesn't mean you're going to be good enough to play in the Premier League for Manchester United going forward as an attacking fullback. That doesn't mean that at all. He was a winger as a kid. He's almost pretty meaningless because no winger wants to be a fullback.
Yeah,
So
you're right. You're right.
he stopped being a winger and was moved to fullback was because he was a better defender than he was going forward. That's why that happened. So now we thought, 7 years later, we think, he's going to be amazing going forward. It doesn't work like that at all.
Yeah.
I always find that argument a little bit hollow when people go, well, he was a winger as a kid, so he must be great going forward. He was a winger at a kid at Crystal Palace's under-15s team. He wasn't, spoken about as this world-class winger as a
not at
teenager.
all.
It wasn't at all. So it's a bit of a moot point that. The thing we look at Wan-Bissaka, we've seen signs of him improving getting forward. He just needs to get a little bit more confidence. He needs to have a winger as well, someone out wide who he can rely on. Because at the moment, what you've got down United's right-hand side is you've got, more recently, it's been Mason Greenwood. Now, I love Mason Greenwood as you do. He's but he's someone who likes to drift inside. That's what he likes to do. He doesn't sort of hug the touchline and get chalk on his boots and all that.
No, unfortunately not.
He's looking to get it on his left foot, get inside, get his shot off. So you're not going to have him drifting out and supporting Aaron Wan-Bissaka down that wing in a traditional sense. You go back
like Gary Neville,
and David Beckham.
Yeah.
I'm not saying these players are as good as those, but you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Down that wing. And we haven't got that at the minute. So Wan-Bissaka's having to do a lot of it on his own. And he's coming up short a few times. So, all he needs to either find a system whereby you have someone who's more out and out, and that might be Jadon Sancho. He says to him, right, okay, you support him or whatever. If we do sign Jadon Sancho, of course. Or Aaron Wan-Bissaka just has to work on it better and better. We've seen glimpses. I think it was the goal that was against Chelsea with the glancing header from Martial. It was a great ball.
Yes, that was a great ball in.
Yeah, and we saw it against Sheffield United as well. When Wan-Bissaka got down the line, he whipped it into, I think, to the near post. And Martial got on it again. So, we've seen glimpses, but we need to see more than glimpses. So he needs to find that consistency, that confidence, and all he needs to find a system that gets the best out of him going forward. Because defensively, it's 10 out of 10. Going forward, it's probably like a 5.
Yeah.
So, in the modern game, yes, your primary objective as a right back is to defend. That's what you're on the pitch.
Absolutely.
In the modern game, and especially in Manchester United play, you have to be able to go forward. So there's no excuses there.
No, you're right. There's an interesting question here from Rene. What do you think of Dale Upamecano as a prospect? Personally, I think he'd be an upgrade on what you currently have defensively. He's been great for RB Leipzig this season. Now, that one, he's probably one of my favourites as a potential replacement. For me, I feel we need to make on in regards to Victor Lindelof. So people talk about Koulibaly, Milan Skriniar, players like that. But for me, he would be actually my preferred choice. He fits the mold of what Ollie's looking for. I think he's only 21, 22. Physical beast. Yeah, rapid, can play with the ball at his feet as well, steps out well. What would you say in terms of if that was an option for Manchester United, or what would be your preference?
I mean, yeah, definitely. He's having a great season, and like you say, he sort of fits the mold of what United need. And you think we'd be able to get him if we went for it with the money and spent the money, we should be able to get him. And some of the other defenders you mentioned, like you look at Koulibaly, what is he, 29? I think
30 now.
30.
30.
So and Napoli wanted massive money for him. I think they want like 90 million for him.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and are you going to spend that on a player who you're going to get probably 3 seasons out at best when you've just spent 80 million last summer on a centre back? Probably not. Like you said, the lad from Leipzig, he's 21 years old, so potentially could be at United for another decade. I would welcome him. I have this sort of doubt in my mind how serious the interest it is in Ollie to get a
another centre back. Yeah, I agree.
I know we do need sort of strengthening that area, but I just don't know whether Ollie might be looking at it a bit more long term. You look at some of the options we've got, and I'm still not giving up on Axel Tuanzebe. I think he's had a horrible season because of injuries, but he might still have a future. Eric Bailly, maybe. Ollie's
same thing, isn't it? Injuries.
Injuries, but Ollie still plays him when he can. And then you mentioned earlier on the young lad said Menga, who's one for the future. So I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one because yes, you think we do need options, but we've got 7 centre backs at the minute in Manchester United. Now, admittedly, the likes of Chris Smalling, Phil Jones, and Marcus Rojo are very unlikely to kick another ball for Manchester United. Yeah. But at the moment, as me and you were talking, we have got 7 centre backs on our ball. So to go out and buy another one,
realistically, especially to splash cash. Yeah, you're right.
At least get rid of some first. But in answer to Renee's question, I would love him at Old Trafford. We bought him. fantastic. But I just don't know how serious the interest is.
Yeah, that's probably a really good point, to be honest, though, Jay. Is how serious are we with regards to pursuing a centre back realistically? Yes, there does need to be improvement, but like you mentioned, Tuanzebe, I think there is. It's a really good point, to be fair, Jay. I think there is still some form of hope with regards to those guys coming through. And in all honesty, I'm hopeful that Tuanzebe doesn't end up like by his mid-20s and he's still getting injured, still isn't playing game in, game out. There was this, I heard a stat about what was it, Maguire playing the most minutes in the world this season or something.
I think 59 games or something. I can't remember.
Madness, absolute madness. Yeah. So
I mean, he barring what he only could have possibly played 3 more games if we'd have got into those 3 finals.
Yeah.
So he's played almost the maximum amount of games possible because he's been almost an ever present. I think he has been ever present. So yeah, you can't follow him that. But the problem is, I mean, I know it's a massive if, but very he was fit. He's been a perfect foil for Harry Maguire for me. He would.
You would. He absolutely would.
He's confident on the ball, and I think he'd work well with him. We saw it years ago when he played alongside Daley Blind, and they looked good together. So I think Maguire would work. But the problem is, when's the last time Maguire played 5 games or 6 or 7 games on the top? Very rare. So yeah,
I think it is the last time when he was actually at Villarreal.
There you go.
Where he played like 10 games in a row. Last time ever.
Well, that says it all, doesn't it? Really, and, you can't have defenders. You can't rely. You want defensive partnerships to form and stay together. You look at all the great Manchester United teams, going back to whether it's Bruce Pallister, whether it's Starman and Johnson, or whether it's obviously Rio and Vidic. You've had those 2 centre backs that have played more or less every game together. When you've only got one that you can rely on, and the others keep swapping, it's not a great look. So it's going to be difficult. But yeah, I'm always skeptical. We've been linked with the lad from Brighton, Ben White, I think today.
I've seen that today. Yeah,
and I think I said it at the time. Like he's had a good season at Leeds, and he's which is doable in the transfer market. But I'm always skeptical how serious the interest is.
Yeah, it's pointless, like you say, when we've got players of that potential ilk anyway. So we do need to, I think, unless we'll go for a well-beaten defender, if there is such a term. We do need to try and give our own an opportunity, I feel. But if we were to go for him, my choice would be Upamecano anyway. But that being said, with Pogba coming back from injury, obviously, being injured, we had Fred, Bruno and Pereira starting a lot of games early this season, or a mix with Juan Mata there as well. And then all of a sudden, because obviously Matic was out of favour as well, looking like he's going to be leaving at the end of the season. All of a sudden, Matic came on form from January. We signed Bruno, Pogba came back. All of a sudden, it's a brand new midfielder almost. That being said, obviously, we've looked really good, but obviously recently we've kind of slowed down a little bit because of obviously fatigue and legs and whatnot. Who would be, and I'm interested to see who, because I'm going to predict your forward choice, but I'm interested to see who your midfield choice would be of best midfielder this season.
For me, it has to be Bruno Fernandes, and people go, "Oh, he didn't come in until January, end of January." Well, who else? You look at Paul Pogba missed most of the season for injury. Fred probably isn't even the first choice anymore. Pereira, let's be honest, never going to happen. Somebody missed massive amount of the season for injury.
Yeah.
Matic wasn't even considered good enough until January.
Yeah.
So all our midfielders have sort of question marks around him. But you look at Bruno Fernandes, the way he came in, the way he just sort of rejuvenated the team. He made everyone else up their game as well. And then it was helped, of course, when Martial and Pogba came back from injury. That helped massively because it improved the players around him. But even that debut against Wolves, we were talking about it at the time, and you could see him straight away. He was telling people where to go. He was, shouting at players. He's got that in him. He's got that winning mentality in him, which is what we need. And he's just fantastic. And the stats don't lie. People say, they call him, Penandes and all that rubbish. But
that is rubbish, mate.
There's a reason though that we win so many penalties, and he's a big part of that because he's playing in those balls, and we've got the attackers who are getting on the end of it. He's winning penalties himself. He's converting penalties. He's creating chances to get penalties. So I just saw a flying pig in the comments as well. Good to see. But yeah, it's one of those where yes, he only came in January, but what a performance so far. What an impact! And I know he has fatigue, but this is a sign how good he is. Even when he's looked a little bit lethargic, a little bit tired, he's still delivered. He's still creating, and he wants. The thing we've been crying out for at Manchester United for so long is someone who, when they get the ball, wants to make things happen. We've had too many players who, when they get the ball, will play a 5-yard. Yeah, that's it. Play it safe. Under Van Gaal, it drained the life out of me watching that. Possession, keep it, and you'd wait 89 minutes for a shot. Bruno Fernandes, he gets that ball, and the first thing in his mind is, how can I play someone in?
How can I affect it?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if some of his passes don't come off. His pass completion rate isn't as good as others because he's always trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
But he creates chances, and the likes of Martial and Rashford and Greenwood are thriving off him. So, yeah, for me, Bruno Fernandes has been our best midfielder. And I think as well that when he's had a bit of a rest, I think he needs a bit of a rest, comes back, I think there's even better things to come from him. I really do. I think that he's a special player, and hopefully we'll see some great things from him over the next few years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And do you know what I liked as well, though? Yesterday, especially after we conceded, well, I say I but I appreciated after we conceded that second goal against Sevilla, when Bruno went and was basically having words saying to Lindelof, you should have sorted this out, you should have organised it, and they're having a go at him, holding people accountable. And that's what we've been missing for donkey's years now. Since we've lost all our leaders from the Fergie era, we've not got anyone that's going to grab anyone by the throat and say, what do you think you're doing? Do you know what I mean? Sort it out. And even with Maguire being captain, he don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he isn't the leader, but that's probably yours and mine type of leader, where it's he's going to hold people accountable and he's not going to be afraid to tell them basically there and then, and that's what I think we need. So yeah, I completely agree there, and he's changed the shape of the club basically, and I feel like we are onto something, and I believe that we're going to do well. Flying Pig there, what's going on, my man?
Because he agrees, there you go. Must be getting something right if he agrees with me. It's difficult not to like what Bruno's doing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just literally one of those where we've got to look at realistically. Okay, he's coming. He's only been at the club what obviously I suppose you look at 7-8 months now, but in terms of actual time spent, but in terms of playing time, it's like 6 months if you like. But going forward is a caption here from Finn Jeremy. Bruno needs captaincy. What do you reckon to that, Jay?
I get where you're coming from, and I kind of agree, but I don't think you can take it off Harry Maguire now.
Yeah.
I think Ollie's made that statement, and I think if he was to take it off and give it to someone else now, it'd probably be the last thing we need is Maguire's confidence getting knocked, and it probably would knock his confidence a little bit.
Yeah, it would.
But I think just because you're wearing an armband or you're not wearing an armband, sorry, doesn't mean you can't be a leader. You can't be telling people what to do. And you can't be sort of doing what he's doing. You go back to the great Manchester United teams. People always going about 96 when we won a double. That was a class of 92 that won us that trophy. It wasn't. It was players like Eric Cantona, Roy Keane, Peter Schmeichel, Gary Pallister, Steve Bruce. The experienced players. Yes, the class of 92 have played the part, but it was the experienced players that helps us get there. And you have leaders.
Absolutely, you got it over the line.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just Eric wearing the captain's armband who was leader. Roy Keane was leader. Peter Schmeichel was leader. Steve Bruce was leader. Gary Pallister was leader. You had loads.
Yeah, you're right. Multiple.
Yeah, and that's what you need.
Huge.
You need more than one. Yeah, so okay, he might not be wearing an armband, but he's certainly a leader. And I'm like you, I don't mind seeing him lading at players and having a dig, as long as it's sort of for a reason. It was for a reason. And he's got that anger, he's got that winning mentality, and it's what we want to see as fans, because we don't want to see people playing for Manchester United going, oh well, never mind.
Exactly that.
Belly and hopefully that'll seep through to the rest of the team as well, because you need 11 players who've got that in them, not just one.
Absolutely, and I hope that long may that continue, and that hopefully that filters through the rest of the team. That being said, now obviously we've been scoring loads and loads of goals. Obviously, we were since the return of the lockdown, we kind of dwindled out, but obviously that's down to tired legs, obviously. But I did want to show you a little stat, just if that comes up on the screen. Get rid of that one. So a comparison between Greenwood and Rashford. Can you see that all right, Jay?
Yes, it's so is this
it's just since they were on 8 when they was both 18, so their seasons obviously Greenwood's played a few more games. I think he's played like 4 more games since then, scored 1 more goal. But obviously that's the full total of Rashford's season when he was 18. Now, it's interesting reading, I think, because the thing, I don't even look too much at the goals. It's more the shot accuracy and conversion rate. Obviously, Rashford was dribbling more, a little bit more, played a lot more games. But as I say, for me, I look at the shot accuracy and conversion rate because, you know, obviously it's just one of those. Sometimes you get the rub of the green, sometimes you don't. So, but before we go into who we feel is the best striker, what a special mention I feel needs to go to Mason Greenwood in this season. What do you have to say about Greenwood so far? Well, keep going to say so far this season.
I mean, I'd love to know what you think is going to happen between now and the beginning of next season. you booked his plane tickets for the final. You don't have a week when you get over to Cologne and find out we're not playing.
Dear me, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, listen, you can't say enough good things about Mason Greenwood. He's just been phenomenal. He's been a phenomenal talent for years now. Anyone that's watched him at the academy or for a younger level has been raving about him. You know, his record, I think, was 40 goals or something stupid in
44 games, yeah.
40 odd games. He's obviously, you know, his ability to play with his left foot, his right foot, his strength, his skill. He's got everything. Yeah. And, you know, barring a serious injury or anything like that, you can only see him just going on to greater and better things, and hopefully, you know, staying at Manchester United for the rest of his career. I'd love to see him stay United. I think if he did stay United and spend the next sort of 15 years here, he could. I know it sounds a little OTT for an 18-year-old, but he's the type of player who could beat Rooney's record. He could if he played enough games for us, because he's a goal scorer. You know, he's a natural finisher. You know, like Shane, you've coached football, you know, young players better than anyone. How many youngsters can you imagine playing for Manchester United taking a penalty with their weaker foot?
Zero.
No one does that. He does that. He has to get told to stop doing that.
None.
Yeah, and he does that. He did that in a friendly. You know, he's got that mentality where he's just so confident. He's so good with either foot that, you know, his manager wasn't even sure which foot was his strongest. I think it's slightly left foot is just as good as his right. Yeah. Almost. It's madness. But it is. He has got that confidence. He is a natural finisher and a natural goal scorer in a different way. I don't think Marcus is. I think Marcus scored some important goals early on in his career. On his debuts, he scored in his Europa debut, he scored in his league debut, he scored in the Manchester derby, the winner. So everyone was like, oh, you know, here's a goal scorer. Here's a second coming, If you look at the Marcus Rashford and the amount of chances he has and the amount that he converts, and he's my favourite player, so I'm not dissing him, but he isn't a natural finisher the same way that Mason Greenwood is. So, listen, I'm the guy that predicted big things for Kiko Makeda, so I'm not going to get too carried away. But
hey, I loved Federico Makeda as well. I did. And the Villa game.
Yeah, mate. I declared this is it. You know, you're going to play on 200 games for United and score 200 goals or something stupid. But didn't quite work out. But you can see with Mason Greenwood, it's ridiculous. As long as he keeps himself physically fit, and you know he keeps his keeps his head screwed on, he'll become a legend. He's got everything in his locker there to become one of the greats, and he just needs to be looked after.
So that being said, Jay, who would you go for as your number one choice for the best forward of the season? Obviously, we just touched on Greenwood and obviously his exploits this season and him burst onto the scene on his first full season. But obviously, like I say, Daniel James started off really well, first 5 games, then obviously teetered off a little bit. Rashford had his spell this season, as you said, mentioned your favourite player. Obviously, Martial's coming to fruition and seemed like a world beater. Gallo's obviously come off the bench, and when the games he started, he's got a great scoring record from when he starts games. Who would you say would actually be your number one choice or your best forward of the season so far? I did on purpose.
It's been so far. It might be a twist in the tail yet, but we'll guess that they've all finished on the amount of goals they're going to get this season. Don't see anyone getting any more. So throw their hat into the ring. Listen, this might sound like a bit of a contradiction. I think that sort of you could argue that perhaps Martial has been the best of the front 3. But for me, my choice would be Marcus Rashford. I know I say he's my favourite player, and people go, "Oh, well, he's not had a good season." But I think, for starters, I think Marcus was carrying the team a lot when he didn't have anyone around him. Martial was out, Pogba was out. We hadn't signed Bruno Fernandes, you know, and it was literally Marcus or no one.
Literally was that.
He didn't have anyone around him. You know, you talked about Dan James had a purple patch when he first arrived, then stopped scoring. Jesse Lingard had his worst season ever.
Yeah.
Andres Pereira, I think, finished with 1 goal and 2 assists or 3 assists.
Yeah.
Which, for considering he played quite a lot of games, I think he played 40 games in total.
Yeah, in total.
25 in the league is pretty poor. So there was a time when it was all about Marcus Rashford. And there's also a time when, you know, you look just before he got injured, he was playing when he wasn't fully fit. We were relying on him. You know, we brought him on against Wolves whilst he had a back injury, and he makes it worse. And then he comes back from all that towards the back end of the season and still plays his part. And people will scratch and go, well, he scored a lot of penalties. You know, I hear the same argument with Fernandes. If it wasn't for him converting those penalties and winning a lot of those penalties, we wouldn't have even been within a shout of getting into that top 4.
But it means nothing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just a nonsense that people sort of use it as a stick to beat with. So, despite the fact that Martial's been fantastic this season, and in terms of sort of game for games, the amount of good games he's probably played more than anyone else. I'm going to go with Rashford just for the way he carried us and just for the way, he sort of got those goals earlier in the season when we needed him, always stepped up, played through those injuries, came back after the break when, we didn't think we were going to get him at the end of the season, but he did. He came in, and even when he has a bad game, Marcus, he offers you something. You look at Sheffield United game, he missed an absolute sitter, like a tap in, and you're like, oh my God, and he still ends up with 2 or 3 assists.
Yeah.
So, for me,
the overall body, isn't it?
Yeah. If you take all that into consideration, then I'd give it to Marcus. But listen, I'm not going to argue with anyone that says Martial's their pick because he's had a fantastic season.
Yeah,
he's the top scorer, and he only I think it's 1 penalty that he missed. So you can't pin that one on penalties. He's had a great season. We're unfortunate that we missed him, especially those first couple of months when we really needed him.
Yeah,
because I think had we had Martial and Rashford, especially when you're missing Paul Pogba as well, we would have picked up a few more points. And listen, I'm not going to say we would have finished above 3rd because I think that was really the top we could have finished. But we would have at least got another sort of 6 or 7 points.
Yeah. At the very least,
much better points.
So that being said, though, Jay, which I would looking at the body of work, I'd look at, I don't know, I'm stuck between Rashford and Martial in all honesty, but I'll have to sit on the fence with that though. But what I will say is literally we've probably done what we could do with what we've got available. That being said, I do just want to ask you the final question.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm getting Stephen House is throwing me over for the broom. So
I know you got to do one. Just a quick 2-word answer then. Who's your player of the season?
Bruno Fernandes.
I'm not surprised.
Boosted us.
Yeah.
Wrote the game of everyone around him, got the goals, got the assists, and gives me that confidence going into the next season. Despite we don't know, there might be another twist at the end of the season because you keep saying so far. So maybe we'll end up with a trophy. You seem to know more than I do about this sort of thing. You're quite confident. There's more to come. But so far, it's Bruno.
Well, thank you very much, Jay. I do appreciate that. And thank you very much for joining us as well. Much love, much appreciated. Guys, obviously, everyone who's watching and who will be watching on the replay, go and subscribe to Stretford Paddock as well, if you haven't already. Much appreciated for you joining us, Jay. I'll let you go now, mate, and I'll catch up for you real soon, my friend. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.